Make sure we're back on. Are we back on for our video feed? Public access says we are good. Okay. Let the record show the committee has moved to reconvene in open session. As a result of its closed session deliberation, I will read the findings of fact and conclusions of law document, a copy of which will be provided to the property owner following this hearing. In the above matter, having come before the Public Health and Safety Committee of the Common Council, City of Wausau, on the 16th day of December 2024, the committee hereby makes the following findings of fact, conclusions of law, and determination. In the findings, we find that C&K Thompson Properties LLC, the owner, currently owns a rental property at 1013 North 3rd Avenue and owned the property on September 25th, 2024. We find that on September 24th, 2024, the Wausau Police Department notified the owner in writing that the property was being declared a chronic nuisance premises due to the arrests resulting from 2 tenants and municipal citations being issued related to maintaining a drug trafficking place, possession of THC, possession with intent to deliver cocaine, and possession of drug paraphernalia. The owner appealed this declaration pursuant to Wausau Municipal Code 9.24.070 sub H on October 7th of 2024. The Public Health and Safety Committee sent out a notice of hearing on October 24th for a hearing to take, or October 16th, 2024, for a hearing to take place on October 21st, 2024. The owner failed to appear. The owner did not receive notice of the hearing in a timely fashion, but after 10/16 of 2024. On December 16th, 2024, a hearing was held before the Public Health and Safety Committee at the City of Wausau City Hall located at 407 Grant Street in Wausau, pursuant to Wausau Municipal Code Chapter 9.24.070 sub H, for the purpose of hearing the above entitled matter, with Ann Jacobson, City Attorney, advising the committee, and the owner of C&K Properties LLC appearing by Chad Thompson. On December 16, 2024, the Public Health and Safety Committee deliberated pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes 19.85 sub 1 paragraph A with regard to the allegations contained in the chronic nuisance premises notice. Based on that review, the Public Health and Safety Committee finds as follows: that on September 25th, 2024, the owner owned the property. That on September 25th, 2024, the Wausau Police Department declared the property a chronic nuisance premises after conducting a search warrant on a vehicle containing a tenant of the premise being stopped and drugs and paraphernalia being found, as well as conducting a search of the tenant's unit, and sent written notice to the owner of the premises. That pursuant to Chapter 9.24.070, paragraph B, sub 3, one enforcement action resulted from the manufacture of delivery of a controlled substance as defined in Wisconsin Statutes Chapter 961. That enforcement action consisted of an arrest and the issuance of a summons and complaint, as well as the issuance of municipal citations. We also find that the owner appealed the declaration of chronic nuisance premises in a timely manner on October 7th, 2024. Based on the findings of fact, the committee hereby makes the following conclusions of law. This matter is properly before the committee pursuant to Wausau Municipal Code Chapter 9.24.070 sub H, that the owner has the burden of proving the allegations do not exist by a preponderance of the evidence. We find that the owner has provided appropriate controverting evidence. We find that the owner has met its burden of proof, and by greater weight of credible evidence, the owner has not violated Wausau Municipal Code Chapter 9.24.070 in that the premise would meet a definition of chronic nuisance premises. Our determination as a result is that the Public Health and Safety Committee hereby reverses the declaration that the property is a chronic nuisance premises, and counsel for the committee is hereby directed to provide a copy of these findings of fact, conclusions of law, and determination to the owner and the city. That document will be dated today. I'll sign that document, and we'll get one out to the property owner as well. And so that nuisance declaration has been lifted. So thank you, everyone, for taking time to come in today and go through this process with us. And that'll close the record on this particular matter. And then the city attorney will get those documents out likely tomorrow, correct? Okay, perfect, excellent. All right, so thank you, everyone who is here for that item. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action on the sale of Wausau Fire Department ladder truck number 2 and the potential replacement purchase. You have some information in your packets from the fire department. You recall a number of months ago that one of our firefighters was injured when the ladder apparatus on truck number 2 suddenly fell, and him with it. That truck has been taken out of service and has not been serving the community, I believe, since the accident. And so what we have is a request from the fire department. They would like to engage a company that works in the sale of fire apparatus and be able to dispense with that engine, acquire a replacement, and move on from that incident and from that piece of equipment. We've got, let me just switch in the packet. So you have the memo from Chief Cop, and they're looking to enter into an agreement with Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus to facilitate the sale and the potential purchase of a replacement vehicle to meet their operational standards. A few things that we have to consider is its impact, the sales impact on litigation, the sales impact on evidence in these hearings. We'll talk that through with the city attorney as well. Chief Cop, anything that you would like to, I guess, go over with us in connection with your memo to kind of tee up this discussion?
Yeah, obviously this is a very unique situation and very sensitive one at that. When we were at the finance meeting, we left there with some direction on what we could bring back to the Public Health and Safety Committee. And with that was a little bit more case. We worked with our civic attorney as well as Attorney Jacobson, and she did add that into the packet. Before I get into some of my stuff, I don't know if she wanted to highlight anything. Okay. So I took the liberty of making some notes after that finance meeting to talk about some of the challenges that I've been faced with, some of the questions that are out there, and some of the concerns that I have moving forward as the chief of this department. I did hand out some sheets to you guys because they also wanted a breakdown of some pricing. I don't know if I gave you one, Lisa.
I don't have one, no. I'll share with Ann, I'm good.
So I made a few notes that I wanted to just touch base on and give you guys a little background on some of the environment and the concerns going around the fire station. So a lot of it, to start, it's psychological, right? The trauma that we suffered in March of 2024 resulted in the severe injury of one of our own firefighters, and we can't underestimate what that did to our entire staff, the ones that were on duty and the ones that were off duty. Mm-hmm. This truck is now a symbol of a traumatic event. Continuing to use it could compromise the mental well-being and performance of our team. The trust is the psychological barrier of using the same vehicle again can't be overlooked, and the loss of confidence in that truck could lead to diminished performance or hesitation in critical situations. We have one of the toughest jobs in the world to begin with, and then when you have a question mark in the back of your head when you're doing something that involves acting quickly and protecting life and property, having that question in the back of your head could change the whole outcome of what we're trying to accomplish in those situations. Mm-hmm. This has led to significant emotional and mental health concerns among the firefighters who were involved. That's a tremendous amount of feedback that I've been given over the past few months. And the safety for the well-being of the firefighters, removing this truck from service will help restore confidence in the department's fleet and its safety standards. Prioritizing mental health and the safety of our team is paramount in maintaining a highly effective and cohesive unit. By removing this truck and getting ourselves into something similar that does not have the symbolization or the memories that come with the one that we are in right now, it will carry less emotional and psychological baggage. And by selling Ladder 2, the department is making a proactive decision that demonstrates its values to the health, safety, and morale of its firefighters. This is kind of a healing process as far as I can see it as a chief, and the decision is also part of moving the department forward from the trauma of the incident and regain the strength and unity needed to continue serving the community effectively. Those are just some of the notes I wanted to highlight as I went through. I didn't want to read you both pages of everything I wrote down since the finance meeting, but I'd expound on a lot of those, and that would draw me to draw your attention to the the pricing that we got for these other trucks, and I've put down a few that we've looked at that are available. You see that there's 2 new ones on there, and there's also some used ones to give you some price ideas and some extended talks with different vendors about the projected sales of the one we have right now. You can see we spent $998,347 on the one that we have right now, and the projected sale of it right now, because of the unique economy that we're in, is $1.1 to $1.2 million. You know, obviously depending on if we decided to sell it outright or if we went through a vendor, like I put into the memo. So there's probably more out there. We haven't had a whole lot of time to dig in too deeply. There's not going to be a lot because the market is so depleted as far as finding something that's used or new that's available. Companies don't make demo trucks like they used to because the demand is just too high, and
Yeah.
they're 3 years out when you spec anything. So that's one of those things we're up against. I also invited Solomon from DPW to be here if you had any questions or concerns when it comes to fleet things, just because he's a little bit more versed in those things than I am. But I did a lot of looking. Even one of these companies, the E1 that you saw on here, brought their truck down for us to see on Thursday. So we were able to put our hands on it, climb around in it, check it all out, and look at different things of how we can compare. So
That, I guess, before we get into the legalities of selling the truck, because I do want to hear from Ann about that. I know that there's been some testing done on that truck to determine that it would be safe to sell if we chose to sell it. But, you know, that said, it's not often that you can sell something used for more than you paid for it. I mean, that's probably a good thing for us. As far as the manufacturers of these potential vehicles, obviously you've all had experience with Pierce. Have you had experience with the other 2 companies, though, in terms of quality, manufacturing, you know, in terms of performance? I mean, those are not companies that I believe we've owned before.
not in Wausau we haven't owned. You know, E1 is one of those, if you want to call them up and comer for lack of a better term. They weren't very popular in Wisconsin until recent years. They've become more popular, especially with the Green Bay Metro Fire switching to all E1s. So it's a lot about supply and demand too with a lot of the bigger departments, which helps a lot of these different smaller vendors grow when they get these opportunities, especially in a state like Wisconsin where we're dealing with the weather that we deal with. So, you know, Sutphen is what we went to. They're not very popular in Wisconsin. They're more popular down south, but Pierce obviously has the market in Wisconsin. And they've reached out to me multiple times in the past couple days to set up some meetings. They know where we're at right now, and they really want to do things. And I think it's what you're seeing with E1 and Pierce, is they're really trying to make this as affordable as they can to try to gain a new partner with Wausau Fire Department.
Right. Well, and just myself, I think when it comes to a measure of proven quality and experience, I would rather see proven quality and experience than an untested or unproven up-and-comer. I think that's kind of what our experience has been with the Sutphen, because that works, like you said, it works in the south. You don't see a lot of them up here, but we were part of a purchasing consortium where those came from. I think part of the allure of the Sutphen, though, is the availability of parts, and not necessarily proprietary parts, which is a problem that we had with Pierce, I think, right? With other apparatus where it was difficult to get certain parts, no?
You're absolutely correct. That was the case then, and what they've assured me of this past week, Reliant is now the new vendor for Pierce in the state of Wisconsin. They have a nationwide following as far as reliability and as far as the reputation goes. And what they are claiming they have done is gone away from that, so that it's not such it's viewed as a market where they have it cornered. You can only fix their trucks with their parts. They're saying they're working towards a better solution for fire departments to get their fire trucks back up and on the road without having to wait for certain parts just exclusively through
That's
their own
helpful,
vendors.
because to have it out of service waiting for one vendor is very, very difficult, especially when you have limited stuff on the road to start with, so.
And, that was just a discussion with the salesperson, so.
Right. I think that it will ultimately be up to the finance committee to decide which engine gets purchased and how much they're willing to pay for it. I think we just have to decide in concept, are we willing to sell this thing, and authorize the finance committee to move forward with something else. I think that's, and the legality of it, I think, is what they want us to analyze here. The money part, where the rubber meets the road on the money as far as what actually gets paid for and what gets bought, that really is the finance committee's purview, not ours. I mean, here, we don't spend money here, but on the policy side, I think we certainly can talk about the viability of making a sale, and acquiring something else. I mean, I can certainly understand the emotional ramifications that the incident had on the crew. I think that so often when something like that fails, especially if it's something that's mechanical or elevated, I think subsequently, every time you get on something like that, you're going to wonder, is it going to hold or isn't it? You know, and I think that having that in the back of your mind, I think, how do you not think about that, especially for those that were here when it occurred? So I can totally understand that. I guess, Ann, do you want to walk us through the legal, I think there's been testing done on the truck, and you've had some exchange of evidence back and forth with the workers' comp claimant, right?
Or the attorney.
Or the attorney, okay,
That
sure.
Civic designates for us because we're self-insured. Thank you,
Right.
Lisa. I did have a memo in the packet, and I'll just highlight maybe 4 sentences. So in terms of pending litigation, there really is no litigation. This is a work comp claim that has been settled, so to speak. There are no disputes concerning the extent or nature of the employee's injuries. So the city is going to continue to pay benefits for his lost time and medical expenses until he reaches his end of his healing period. However, the city has the right to recover the benefits that it's paid from a third party that could be found liable for the injuries, like a manufacturer, if they find that the injuries were caused by not operator error, but by manufacturer's defect.
Yeah.
Yes. And so to that end, we've had numerous meetings on this. We've had Command come and do an inspection. Great Lakes did an independent investigation. No one to date has identified a cause for the retraction of the ladder on the truck. But because we do have a right to recover those benefits, if it's determined to be that way, we can share in that with the injured's attorney if she recovers any benefits. So she is now weighing whether or not she wants to hire, another expert to look at it again and make a final decision or determination as to whether it can even be concluded that it's operator error or they find a manufacturer's defect.
So, and you had reached out to that attorney, and there's not been a response yet as to whether or not they want to do further testing?
She did respond to Dick Seaman, our attorney, but did just say, please keep us informed of your deliberations at the city, and if you do plan to sell it, I want to know immediately when you're getting rid of it, and she may or may not pull the trigger and want to get it inspected again. But
Before it goes.
Yep, we put her on notice that we're thinking about it, and
Sure.
we've complied with everything we need to do.
And it would be, I think, when they set the sale date, within the finance committee and the motor pool, I think that it would be feasible for them to allow time for you to work with that attorney so that if they need one last inspection,
Right.
that could be conducted before it leaves here.
So there's no
Right.
legal impediment to the sale of the truck at all. And we
Okay.
would absolutely disclose to Brindley that there was, the facts that a
Everything
employee
that
was
happened.
injured and that we could
Right.
not determine what the cause of the injuries were.
Can
if
I
that's
ask
the
why
case.
Brindley? Because that's not a company we've used before, and they're not local. So tell me what they bring to the table versus selling it yourself at auction or something.
Right, so once we started looking into this, there are some other brokers out there, and then starting talking to a lot of sales reps, especially the one that we have through Custom Fire, which is who we use to buy our Sutphens. They talked about this being one of the most reputable ones out there, the ones that have the highest success rate as far as turning over the most amount of money. They're family-based, and, the list kind of goes on and on from there as you can start to talk about some of the things that probably aren't as important, but just their reputation and the fact that they get more money than the other brokers out there on a pretty.
In terms of resale for
Right.
us. Okay.
They also offer to purchase, but that price goes way down then when you're not selling. So that's something we're really not looking at.
Right.
That's, again, like you said, probably for the finance committee.
Sure. Okay, so I think that really is the decision that we have to make is, A, are we willing to sell it? And direct the finance committee to facilitate that sale and then look to authorize motor pool to purchase a replacement as one becomes available. I think that really is all we have to, that's probably all they're going to ask us to solve here. The money piece is still theirs. What are your thoughts, committee? Go ahead, Lou.
I think it's kind of hard to try to sell a piece of equipment that where there was an accident, you haven't figured out how it happened. If it's if it's operator error or equipment error. You know, I've read the stuff and nobody has seemed to come up. I can understand where an employee would not want to operate this piece of equipment, you know. But I also have concerns about selling a piece of equipment without a clean bill of health.
Right. And that, I think, with the prior testing that they had done, they demonstrated that it did not fail testing under the testing, right? They were not able to replicate the failure.
That's correct. All parties involved have given it essentially a clean bill of health when they told me as the chief I could take it out of quarantine and do what I needed to do with it at that point. So though I'd add that, and I would also add the fact that there are multiple departments out there that have already heard through the grapevine that this could be coming down the pipe and are very, very interested. They're in Minnesota, and a lot of them just don't care what the history is. They need a truck that bad, compared to a department like ours who lived through this and really don't want to, that do care about
Right.
what happened and about how they feel about that vehicle, whether it's a clean bill of health or not.
Well, and working through a broker with a full disclosure as far as what the circumstances of our sale is, I mean, that should mitigate the liability from us
Okay.
as a seller, right? I mean, we're not looking at legal peril as a result of making the sale. We've been honest on the front end about all of the journey that this thing has had, right? So Lou, go ahead.
I wouldn't have a problem selling it then if, you know, nobody can come back at us for litigation for at any point in time, if, you know, I wouldn't have a problem selling it.
Sure. Okay, committee members, anybody else have thoughts? Becky?
I'm not convinced. I didn't get that with the, I didn't get your information with the money.
I sent them over there, I thought. Well, you guys were in closed session.
Oh, no, I didn't miss. I'm on the committee, I'm on finance committee. The first part was definitely the liability portion. I guess, here's a question, what would happen if they have the third person come in, that other attorney, and they find something? Do we stop the sale?
I think it depends on what we hear and how far along we are in this. I mean, if we haven't signed anything with Brindley yet, and
So-
we tell her, oh, okay, it went to this committee this night, and then finance, and now we're gonna go, we have voted, or the body has voted
Right.
to sell it, she's just gonna have a matter of days. Well, have you signed an agreement with Brindley yet or not? Because then it's probably gonna be too late to
Well-
pull back on them because they're entitled to a commission.
Right. And that's what worries me, because we are not out of the soup yet for litigation, of what I understand, with the other attorney.
No, we are not liable for anything beyond his
Right.
work comp
Work
benefits,
comp,
but we
but-
could recover
Right.
if the injuries were due to manufactured
Manufacturing
defect.
error. And another thing is that would be another reason why we shouldn't sell, because we don't know for sure. And that I'm still on that point. If the other attorney, okay, we say, let's say this votes tonight, and then we have finance and council, and you say, go ahead, or you let the attorney know, it's on a train now, going down. And she said, I'm going to get an expert, my own expert, to look at this. Of what, maybe we changed it, but I know in finance, they were wanting to go to Brindley the next day to put it up. That's my concern. If she said, wait, I want a chance, I don't think they're gonna get an expert in a day to come. What happens then?
Like I said, and I don't know if she's actively working on getting one. I don't want to represent that she wants a third one, but the city currently is saving the money by not hiring one themselves, because
Right.
we can allow her to do it, and if they get that determination, then we will benefit from her expert.
Manufacturer.
Yeah.
Right. But,
So
so the city is not considering getting an expert themselves?
we've already done 2
Okay.
inspections.
So, but what would happen if she said, well, it passed, it's on, the train's going, I want to get an expert do we stop this train?
I think we'd ask her, I think Dick Seaman would ask her, well, how, have you been trying to arrange for one? How soon can you get one here to inspect it? Because it's leaving in 48 hours or whatever the case may be. I think another discussion would have to occur.
So.
I mean, it may or may not be out of our hands by the time she arranges for one, but that's why we're staying in close touch with her as we go along, because we put her on notice.
That was, I guess, to camp onto that, because I think I understand where Alder McElhaney is trying to go. And that's what I was saying, is if we decide that we want to authorize, or at least recommend that the Finance Committee begin the process of sale and replacement, with that also could come our recommendation that they facilitate an appropriate amount of time for you to reach out to that council, get that decision about an added expert inspection. If they choose not to have one, move it along. If they need some time, whether that be a matter of days or weeks, that sale could be tailored to meet those needs if they vocalize that they want that extra inspection, right? So, I mean, finance could definitely set the time frame of the sale or adjust the time frame of the sale if the claimant council or the workers' comp council comes back and wants extra time to view, right? So,
We've stayed in very close touch, so.
okay. Because I feel like then, from our perspective, it really, whether or not that sale actually happens is going to be a Finance Committee action. But I do think that we should make a recommendation to them one way or the other, and then they can really set the price, what they buy, and the timeline. Because all of the motor pool acquisition stuff comes through them anyway, along with the motor pool budget. So, I mean, all we would do is send back a recommendation to move forward, that we've analyzed the legal part, that we've analyzed the departmental impact, which the chief articulated. Do you guys want to make a motion that makes a recommendation to finance? And then it would be up to them to make the decision as to the how much and the when. And they could certainly work with the city attorney's office to make sure that the appropriate contacts get made before they sell. Go ahead, Carol.
So when I was reading this over before the meeting, so my understanding is that we could possibly recoup some of the workers' compensation expenses, but that's it. Right, so, I mean, I guess my thought was, since, instead of us, I didn't think that we really need to find someone else, hire someone else, but kind of just follow what they're doing and allow it to go. The department needs another vehicle, right? And so, and I can understand the feeling of the, crew. So I guess those were just my thoughts, that it's a work comp claim. There's nothing else that can be recovered. So, and as far as the liability, I mean, there's no liability on our part, correct?
Correct.
So, yeah.
No,
it was-
and he has no other remedies against us except the work comp claim, which
Yeah.
we are paying and not disputing. So
Yeah.
it's not going to get any worse, and it could get better if there were an eventual recovery.
Yeah.
Sure.
So all we have to do is gain really from it. So anyway, those are just my
Well,
thoughts.
and across many ways, I guess. I mean, that's the thing is that we have to consider. The only thing I would say is if we recommend the sale, and I would ask thankfully that our motor pool rep is here as well. When you guys are looking for and testing equipment, quality and experience with the product definitely matters. Like if you're going to do this, get a good one. Get something that's tried and true. Don't speculate on stuff that's never been tested in this area and in this climate before. That's just really be cautious with what you bring back in terms of equipment. We want something good for them, and not something that, maybe isn't the best thing for us up here. So, that said, I guess, committee, would somebody like to make a motion to recommend to finance that they move forward with the sale of Ladder 2, that they obviously work with Motor Pool and the city attorney's office to finance the amount, or to consider the amount and the timing of said purchase? Okay, so we have a motion from Lukens to that effect, to make that recommendation. And that then would put in finance's purview, what gets purchased and when, and what they will spend on it. So motor pool obviously can work with them on that too, for some guidance. So along with the department, obviously, if you're going to be vetting and testing equipment, so much like you would with any equipment replacement. Is there a second for Carol's motion?
You know, I think for the safety of our employees and all people involved, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a second from Larson. Further discussion or comment? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, so that motion carries. So that can go back to finance. That way it will have been vetted by both committees. When it eventually gets to council, if it needs to go there, it'll come as a joint recommendation then. And we'll move forward and then let our staff work on the logistics of the actual sale. So, all right. We are getting down in the agenda here. Let me just switch back to the agenda. So we have the tavern activities report for the month of November. And it looks like a fairly normal month. Anything notable on the report that you want to ask the chief about? I see we do have a couple of entries from Aftershock. I did ask for some extended patrol there because we've had some neighborhood dust-ups again surrounding the place, and so I expected to see that activity on the report. Anything notable, Chief, that you wanted to talk with us about?
No, I think you've identified the thing that you may or may not have questions about, and that's with the relationship between Aftershock Bar on the northwest side of Wausau and their neighbors. I think Lieutenant Fish did a good job of outlining the steps officers have taken in regards to spending additional time in that neighborhood and checking on things. But also Lieutenant Fish spent some time talking to the owner of Aftershock and discussing some things that may be done that help mitigate some of the conflict between the neighbors. And we also invalidated some of the anonymous concerns that came in regarding issues that were there. So my hope is that relationship improves. Lieutenant Fish is present in the back of the room. He's the guy sitting there looking at all of us. So if you have any questions for him or
So, yes.
feel
and
free.
So I will say, and I've been down this road with this place since they moved in there. Originally, we're running an establishment over on Thomas Street, and then with the road construction, moved to this new other place. And there's been ups and downs. It was calm and then turbulent, and then a long period of calm, and now turbulent again. What I will say is, I do not believe through any of this that the neighbors are strategically targeting the business. I believe they are legitimately disrupted, and I believe they legitimately feel disrupted just based on the volume and some of the traffic and some of the patron conduct that happens there. I am, though, glad to see that through that discussion that the owner of the establishment is at least trying something. Because in the first go-round that we had with that place, there was a lot of defiance and talking the patrons into obscene gestures toward the neighbors and not working with them. And, causing a whole lot of, anytime those neighbors were outside, there was disrespectful conduct between patrons and some of the bartender staff that I think aren't there anymore, and those neighbors. So, I get the fact that the establishment may be upset that neighbors complain all the time, but those things, when you have a tavern in a residential neighborhood, have to peacefully coexist, and they don't always do that. So the fact that they were willing to move some of their noisiest operation to that back room, very helpful. The fact that they're willing to move some of that outdoor activity, smoking and things, to the back, like confined area. That was one of the things that one of the neighbors had asked for all along, was use that back area. No one cares about that area. Between the conduct, the noise, and the littering, that really has been a big problem. There's been some assertions of over-serving. What measure of success anyone has in investigating that, you basically have to catch it in the act. So, that the fact that the owner is willing to work with officers at all, I think, is a positive. And we want them to coexist peacefully, but I really don't feel that the adjacent neighbors, all of whom were there first, I really don't feel that they are looking to close the place. They're not looking to cause trouble for the business. They're not looking for us to do that either. But they do want to feel like they've been heard and that, there's some peace after 10 o'clock at night. The most recent problem came when they added the karaoke. And when that was happening on the front side of the building, it was way louder. So, and maybe every time the door opened, it was worse. I'm not sure. But hopefully they can all work together and figure something out going forward. I am grateful for the increased patrol. I think that's helpful. I think sometimes the bar staff and the patrons don't think it's great when there's this increased presence because, they don't want to see that patrol happening, but if they're behaving themselves, they have nothing to fear. And so you have a right to patrol a neighborhood. The neighborhood has a right to request patrol. If they don't like that, they need to do better. So I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for, an attitude about the fact that they don't want to be patrolled. But I am glad that there's a proactive approach happening with them. So, I guess, does anyone else have any questions on other things that you've seen on the report? Or any questions for Officer Fish? Do you have anything, Officer Fish, that you'd like to add based on your interaction with the owner at Aftershock?
No, just your comments that you already made, that I spoke with her and she was extraordinarily, sorry? Yeah, I spoke
Come up
with
to the
her.
mic.
She was extraordinarily cooperative and understanding of her place in the neighborhood. So I have no concerns over her stance as it relates to our enforcement actions, and she understands that we're going to respond to the complaints as we have.
Sure.
And hopefully things continue to improve.
Well, and I think some of the issue that we've had is she can't be there all the time. And so sometimes I think when things go off the rails, maybe she's not there. It's unclear who is in charge sometimes when it's the worst, but it may not be the owner.
It does sound like she's not there most evenings.
Yeah.
And she also said that she doesn't want the place to be a source of a big nightlife type of crowd.
Right.
Obviously, it's a tavern; they can be open late, but she doesn't want a big bar scene, so to speak, at
Right.
Aftershock late at night.
Right. Well, and that's helpful. I think that helps them, exist better together, if they at least have some type of, shared vision for, what the volume and what the activity surrounding the place should really be. So
Sure.
thank you for having that conversation. Hopefully that continues. We've had interactions before where those interactions were less positive and, it was more accusatory toward the neighbors and dismissive of the fact that there even was a problem. So the fact that they're willing to at least try something is progress. So,
She made the acknowledgement. I didn't have to go fishing for it. That she moved the things and
Good.
is taking some proactive steps.
that's helpful. Thank you so much for that. Anyone else have anything else on the tavern report? If not, we'll place that report on file. Item 6 is our community outreach update. And so we've got our outreach director with us. I think she has at least one success story she'd like to talk to us about tonight. So, and then I also, I think Chief Barnes has some updates for us as well. Go ahead.
Good evening, thank you. So I apologize for not being here last month. I do have the report in front of me. If anyone has any questions about that report, I'm happy to answer those. One thing I just wanted to point out in the report from last month and this month is just to continue to point out the amount of new clientele that come to Good Shepherd Shelter for shelter services. And I think that is the number that I've been focusing on recently too, just to see between last month and this month and the month prior, we had a total of 25 new people come to shelter that have never been in shelter before. So as we think about our numbers and where they're at, I think this is a number that we need to continue to focus on. Success story for October. Oh,
Can I ask you a question, Tracy?
Sure.
Of these 25, are these all people from the area here, or are they people that have, I hate to use the word, been bussed here?
So unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that, and the reason for that is because when they are brought into Catholic Charities and they are doing their intake with these folks, that question isn't asked of them. And I may not have had contact with those 25 people yet to ask when I ask people, because I usually ask that question when I meet people for the first time. So I don't have an accurate answer for you on that, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So, as we talk about the homeless issue not necessarily being a city issue, because it's not, I want to tell you about a success story from October about a gentleman who was staying at the American in Weston. He contacted me, and he wanted to be relocated back to his family in Iowa. And so what I was able to do is I drove to Weston, I picked him up. I was able to get him on a bus that day and back to Iowa. And the reason why I bring this up, and you may have read it in my success story, is that sometimes prevention is also really, really beneficial. This guy never even became a homeless statistic in our shelter system because we were able to get him out of town back to his family before that could happen. So I consider that a success. And then for this last month, you know, I'm going to focus on community on call right now because we did have to activate that last week, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was very successful. Everything went very smoothly. Catholic Charities was in overflow, and they were at 31 individuals both nights, and the off-site location sheltered 10 to 11 on both days as well. So super great cooperation with the Metro system. They were on point, on chime. Tom is great to work with over there. The staff at Catholic Charities was on point with their assessment of folks to send over. I was on site both nights, so I was able to see everything happening as it should. So I just wanted to point out that Community on Call, we did a great job, and all of our weeks from January through March are filled.
Excellent. That's a success story. I think that that effort, both your work and the Community on Call program in general, are two of the most positive things I think that we have done in terms of big steps forward to either mitigation or just getting help to where people need it quickly when they need it. So I think that's huge for us as well.
Yeah, and the church that took these individuals in last week was a new partner this year.
Nice.
And they had a very positive experience, so I anticipate that they will either increase their presence in our schedule next, you know, in the summer or next fall, again, winter. But I also think that this is really great for others that are contemplating whether or not they should do this or not. So having positive experiences that we can share with other parishes or other partners that are thinking about it, I think is really impactful as well.
It is helpful. I think last year when we first started, like, no one knew quite what to make of it yet, you know, and I think just seeing that you've had a few nights where things have gone real well, that's just great to grow the program. So
Yep.
thank you so much for that. Does anyone have questions for Tracy about the report at all? If not, we'll place her report on file. I think Chief Barnes has a couple comments as well.
Sure, some comments and an introduction. So as you'll notice in Tracy's report, there's a lot of data from Catholic Charities about capacity at Good Shepherd. And so, you know, both Alderwoman McElhaney and myself sit on the Joint Task Force Commission with the Joint County City Commission, and we just got done in our last meeting talking about capacity, and Tracy had put the data that we evaluate here together. And really, we're looking at, like, what is the need and what does the future of that look like? So first off, tonight, I'd like to introduce you to, and I'll probably screw this up, Regional Director, right? Regional Director for Catholic Charities. This is Gary Veltis. So I'm going to ask him to step up to the podium here and talk to you a little bit about what he does and what his role is. But, you know, today the city was also notified officially from Catholic Charities that effective the end of December, they will not be renewing their contract with us to perform day shelter services. And we had multiple meetings today to discuss that. And at the end of the day, I think it makes sense. I don't know that we've been seeing the population of individuals attending the day shelter that we would have hoped. And Catholic Charities finds themselves at a point right now where they would need to hire additional professional staff to be able to run the day center, but yet it's only funded through April through the city. So it's I know it's difficult to recruit people in general, but to recruit them and be like, and we only have a job for you for 4 months, or we only have funding for 4 months. So that has helped guide their decision to not continue with day shelter services. And this afternoon I sat on the phone or on a Zoom call with Gary and with Roberto, and there's really just a commitment to focus on those night shelter services right now and the importance it's going to be to figure out what that looks like after May and how those are funded. So number one, I wanted to introduce you to Gary. Gary, feel free.
Certainly understandable. Gary, if you want to come up and talk to us, welcome. Welcome first to your new role and welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Barnes. I think you pretty much said everything that I had down here in a sense. I've been the regional director for Catholic Charities now for, since October 21st. Stepped into this role with my own high expectations of helping solve the issue of the homeless. And with that, council members, it is with regret that I must tell you that Catholic Charities will be closing down the Good Shepherd Day Shelter at the end of December. The city has offered to extend funding through the end of April. However, we're down to just one staff person to run that day shelter, and trying to find personnel, as Chief Barnes said, to work for just 4 months has proven very difficult to fill that position, with the people knowing it's very short term. Our current model that was dependent on donors and small grants, as well as city funding, is no longer sustainable with rising costs, and we need to get back to the drawing board. Catholic Charities will continue to focus on providing night shelter at this time for the Wausau's vulnerable population, as well as staying in touch with our city's leaders so that we can identify the best course of action moving forward that will have more concrete, obtainable goals to help the individuals we serve overcome the barriers they face while moving forward and becoming productive citizens. I've met a lot of great people in this city, and I think working collaboratively moving forward, it's an issue that is in every community across the country. It'd be nice to see us be able to lead some of those efforts in finding the solutions.
I can't agree more. I think that collaborative solutions are helpful. I mean, none of us are going to make it going it alone. I did hear or have heard in recent months that the day center itself was sparsely attended. I think that when we originally conceptualized that, we were looking not only for robust use, but robust programming. Both of those things don't come without a very large effort and a bunch of money. And so, the fact that it's underutilized in the first place, is problematic, but also, it certainly makes sense. If it's an unsustainable model, if it's not utilized and people aren't going there, it's very difficult to staff it up and program it, on the speculation that they may. So, I guess thank you for that, at least advance notice on that. I think we're going to, going forward, I think we're going to have to figure out, what those efforts and what the true needs are, where we can focus those efforts, and really what those partnerships look like in terms of deliverables and expectations as well. So,
Correct. Yeah.
yes, thank you so much for
Yep.
that, though. So,
And that-
and for maintaining the night shelter, obviously that is a critical operation for us, and, for participating with Community on Call, both with the managing of it and the ramp up, I think that is also helpful. So
Sure.
definitely needed around here. So, committee members, any questions for Gary at all? Go ahead, Carol.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say welcome and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. I'll give it my best effort, I can tell you that. And I'd like to just make a quick comment and thank Tracy for the coordination of the Community on Call efforts. Another awesome person right there, so, yeah.
It's big jobs. Both of you have big jobs, but so valuable to the community. So,
Okay.
all right, with that, we'll place the outreach report on file. Obviously, between meetings, if questions come up, you can always reach out to Tracy if you need to. She's always available. But she is out there on the daily doing really, really valuable work. So we love that, too. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn because we are out of items. So motion from Lukens. Is there a second? Second by Larson. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one's ever opposed. We'll stand adjourned. Happy holidays, everyone. This is, the meeting schedule for the year is winding down. And so we don't meet again until January, so everyone have great holidays. Thank you.
30.